Isekai, a genre that makes some recoil and disgust, and others bricked up by just the thought of it. It's a genre of anime in which a protagonist either dies or is kind of just teleported to another world or reality. It's a pretty dividing genre because although there can be good shows within it, like for example Familiar Zero, Arifureta, Devil's a Part-Timer, and ReZero, the genre is kind of flooded by a gang of mid-ass shows. Now personally, I enjoy watching most isekai. I kind of watch them from time to time as like a palate cleanser. You know, like if I just got through a tense ass arc and need to kind of watch something mindless before watching something else. But yeah, the genre can be pretty generic and formulaic as fuck. The shows kind of follow this basic outline. Obviously there can be differences, but in general this is basically what happens. The main character dies or is transported. They talk to like a god or a goddess who basically tells them that they will be sent to a world in need of saving from some great evil, like a demon king or whatever. It could also be like a global catastrophe, or sometimes you're kind of just trying to get back home. From there they gain or pick out a power or just giving cracked out stats to start off with. They meet up and become friends with a small group of people who then follow our hero. Within said group, there's usually a couple of females who are romantically interested in our oblivious main character. They save the world a couple times, maybe via completing some quests or just roaming around. We get some fan service sprinkled around, and then season 1 ends wrapped up with a happy-ish ending, and us seeing the main character get away with outlandish shit and kinda just flaunting power around. Of course, the Devil King isn't really defeated or anything, or like the calamity isn't stopped or the hero doesn't go home, you know, but it ends on an okay note for the most part. Shows within the isekai genre that don't tend to really get a season 2, they're more than often just a one and done unless they're out of the norm and like hella well received. Out of the norm and hella well received, that's a pretty accurate description for Konosuba. It's got 2 seasons, a sub and a dub, a movie, and the game. So as you can kind of assume from that, it's got a pretty big fan base, and the outcry for season 3 is pretty prevalent on posts online. But yeah, since I'm gonna be talking about it from this point on, this is basically a spoiler warning. If you haven't seen it already, I encourage you to do so before watching me go on about it. It's a pretty dope show. But yeah, the story follows Sato Kazuma and his party comprised of Aqua, Megumin, and Darkness. The reason the show is goated and basically just peak fiction is because it's essentially a parody of the genre. It takes what's expected of the genre, like its formula, and kind of just busts its soul all over it. And instead of a well-mannered main character with a harem or a group of likable individuals around them, Konosuba gives us a pretty polarizing cast. There's Aqua, the goddess of water. She's a total shitter. Look up useless on Google. Go to images and you'll see Sakura, I guess? Shit, I guess it's kind of unavoidable. But you'll also see Aqua there. She's dumb as fuck, like actually on some hard-stuck 3rd grade reading level shit, and the show pokes fun at her for it. She also uses her skill points on party tricks rather than actual utilities an adventurer would need. She bitches and complains constantly and isn't ever really seen or respected as a goddess. She's hella boisterous about it, but no one aside from like Kazuma believes her, and they kinda just write her off as being kinda delusional. Then there's Megumin, an archmage whose specialty is explosion magic. On paper, that's busted as fuck. Like, what isn't weak to like literal explosions? She's basically a walking nuke. Except she's basically just that, a one-time use, big ass explosion. She can only muster up one massive ass blast before being rendered immobile and unable to cast again for a day, in which you actually have to carry her around until she's able to move again. And since she's only able to produce explosions of a large magnitude, she's only really viable outdoors while at a safe distance from the intended target. Since using it indoors or in a close quarter combat situation, you'd basically just prematurely put yourself in an eternal sleep along with the members of your party. You're probably thinking, oh, well, she can probably just throw out a fireball or shoot out some other kinds of spells, yeah? But that's where the problem arises. She's just got like a total hard-on for explosion magic and refuses to use any other kind of spell. Just her massive explosions. Then we have Darkness. She's a knight. A noble, honorable knight who won't hesitate to sacrifice herself for the sake of her friends or any good cause. At least she's that on the surface. Very quickly on, we're shown that that's basically just a front for her masochistic tendencies. And that's putting it lightly, since she's pretty much a total detriment to her party, since in any given situation, if the opportunity arises where she'll have to go through some deplorable things, she'll take it. They could be trying to sneak by Batman after jaywalking in like Gotham or something, and she'd willingly run at him with a grin awaiting the coma that he'll put her in under the pretext of saving her friends. It's mostly a gag, and the people she pulls up on are taken aback by her and kind of just like concerned or creeped out by her. The most we get from what I remember is just her being pummeled by cabbages, which I mean, It's way better than seeing anything going on inside her head. To top it all off, she has like zero offensive capabilities. Not even trying to be funny or anything, like she actually cannot connect her sword to an opponent. Like she would be right next to the guy, point blank, and she would somehow miss her target. It's pretty baffling, to be honest with you. But yeah, regardless, pretty detrimental quirk to have among a party member. Lastly, from the main cast, there's Kazuma, the hero of this anime. The man who will slay the Demon King, capture our hearts, and fucking find the One Piece or some shit. But yeah, dude's a total degenerate. A shutting knee in his previous life, he strays pretty far from like the generic isekai protagonist. He's selfish, kinda perverted, and an asswipe. Power wise, he's pretty average too. Like, not at all a protagonist with potential to one-shot the Demon King, or being any kind of fight with the Demon King, to be honest with you. It'd actually be a miracle if he could actually damage the guy. He constantly bitches about or complains about his party, and kinda just sees himself above him. Now, if you stuck around up to this point and you haven't seen Konosuba, you'd understandably be glancing over at the title and thinking, Ace, you're a mongrel, there's no way you think this show is goated. It sounds mid as hell. How could I ever enjoy a show with such a terrible cast? And to be honest, on paper, I can see where you're coming from. Realistically, who'd want to watch an anime that has characters bitching constantly and getting nowhere? It'd be like coming home from work or school and willingly watching episodes of The Flash or some shit. That's the thing though, upon watching, you surprisingly do enjoy the cast. On paper, yeah, it sounds like a terrible show, even if it is like a parody on the genre. But the chemistry the characters have, and the jokes and gags that arise due to the cast and their various quirks, make them feel like a group of friends. Like actual people, if that makes sense. They're not perfect, they're actually far from it, but it's what makes them so likable. For example, there's this part in the show where they're trying to decide who will ride on the back of a carriage. It ends up as Kazuma versus Aqua in a rock paper scissors match. Kazuma tells her that if he can win 1 out of 3, she'll sit in the back. Of course, Aqua's all smug about it and questions Kazuma's intelligence, because him winning 3 in a row is pretty unlikely. But yeah, Kazuma beats her 3 in a row anyways. And to top it off, he beats her a 4th time, even after she cheats and boosts her luck stats momentarily. She complains about it a bunch, and Kazuma ends up ripping into her and making her cry. Interactions like this, where you see them just naturally interact and vibe like friends, are peak Konosuba to me. That really paint their friendship out to me. This and like Kazuma carrying Megumin after explosions, or like Aqua trying to break him out of jail after he's incarcerated for treason. I just think it's dope that a situation where the hero makes a goddess cry would be a low point in the hero's journey in any other show or isekai, but in Konosuba it's more of a passing gag and not really taken seriously. Story-wise, although it's goated, it doesn't have some intricate plot like Bleach or One Piece. I think it's enjoyable for sure and pretty funny, but it's got as much plot as like a slice of life anime. And I mean, to be fair, you shouldn't really be going into an isekai anime expecting like fucking 10 out of 10 writing. Don't get me wrong though, like its plot isn't nonsensical or anything. Stuff does happen. Like, it's not a grocery store arc every episode. But yeah, I only really bring it up because there's always that one shitter that thinks that fucking every anime needs foreshadowing and symbolism in every fucking frame of every single fucking episode for it to be considered peak. But yeah, Konosuba is peak fiction, and you kind of just gotta watch it to understand. It's not really dated either. The show first aired in 2016 and it still holds up. Even now, with more and more isekai sharing that like loser protagonist, or kind of like funny cast or a wacky god or goddess trope among them, I do think Konosuba still does it best, and it kind of has this charm that other shows try to really replicate, but I don't really think they hit the mark, to be honest with you. I do think the experience of watching it is kind of elevated once you've seen a couple cookie cutter isekais or cookie cutter anime before, but it should still be enjoyable on its own. It's definitely the kind of show that can be on your top 10 list of anime, and I wouldn't even question it, to be honest. But yeah, go watch Konosuba, it's dope.